mainly, it is very easy to get some really good shades with watercolor pencils, and I can draw outlines and not have to worry about it muddying up my colors. I'll get into more of that later. So here I am drawing two spheres because one of them is going to be much lighter than the other one. Two circles, I guess I should say. So I have two circles, and the first thing we do is always establish a light source. And because it's typical and pretty normal and pretty average light source, it's going to come from above, right there, like that. And it's going to come the same over here. Now you don't always have to draw in the light source, but always establish a light source. So it's always coming in from right there, or well, not always, but it is coming in from right there. And it's also coming from the front. So it'll hit the main part, the strongest light. You always want to establish where the strongest light source will hit. So it's going to be right there. Now, this doll is going to be dark, or this ball is going to be darker than this ball, for good reason. And it's because when I was in school, nobody ever really bothered to tell me the difference between, you know, the darker and the lighter, and so as a consequence, I had a very difficult time basically distinguishing between, you know, well, if I make this darker, you know, then it kind of blended in with everything else, or if I made it just as light or just as dark and nothing stood out, and it was just really annoying. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, just know that this is actually very important. And notice how I'm using kind of circular shapes, and I've got the pencil laid out flat. And that gives me a really nice even shade. Really lovely even shade. And also notice that I'm starting out light. Even on this one over here that's going to be darker, I'm going to start out light. So I'm coloring in the whole sphere just a really light shade. And don't worry about the outlines. If you like cartooning like I do and outlining and such, then that's great. Have fun. But the reason why I'm using another reason why I'm using watercolor pencils is because the darkness, the outline won't be as dark, or I can actually get it into my painting later on. So there are 6 areas you want to know about when it comes to drawing a ball, or a sphere, or an object with any sort of realism. And that is your highlight, which is right there, your light tone, your mid-tone, that will be whatever color you have chosen your object to be, your shade. It's kind of like your middle color. So let's say that I was painting something red, then this tone right here would be red. Or because I'm painting something blue, this would be the truest blue that I could get in that particular color. Then we have our dark tone. And a lot of people will say the darker you can get it, the better. There's a reason why I'm saying no. However, don't be afraid to get it dark, because, especially if you're using watercolor like me, then later on, your darkness, they won't be so dark. Your dark tones won't be so dark. So Then you have reflected light, which is right here. It's going to be here at the bottom. And what it is, it's when the light comes around the room, hits the table. So let's say these were both laying on a table, and then it bounces back. And so, I'll erase that in a minute. So you have your lovely little, it's just a little bit lighter, but one thing you need to know is that it is never, ever as light as any shade over here on the light side. You have the light side and the dark side. Resisting Luke, I am your father kind of jokes. Okay. Copyright George Lucas, not me. Okay. So, I'm making this just a little bit darker. And because the light source is coming down here like this, we get a shadow. And the shadow is going to hit the table right where the light can't get to it. So if there's a light source up here, draw a line, make sure it's really light so you can erase it later, and it will come all the way over and hit this. And normally this would probably come up and stand and hit this ball over here, but I'm not getting into how objects interact with other objects right now. So smile and nod and draw this big long oval. Your shadow is always the darkest part. Always. It will be immensely darker than any other part of your sphere. Sphere. Did I say sphere or sphere? Covering up my arrow there. Also, the further away from the object, so in this case the ball, further away from the ball it gets, the less dark it is. So always, again, put your darkest tones right here, right underneath the ball. Okay? See how dark that is? I hope you can see how dark that is, because if you can't, then this is all for nothing. And if you have any questions about what should be dark and what should be light and how to get something there, then you can. Now what I'm going to do is, because this ball is going to be my light ball, I'm going to color this just a little bit darker, but I'm not going to really push the shades here. Over on this one, you're going to see it go much, much darker. And we have ourselves a lovely little ball. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this one over here, except when I'm done with the shadow, because this should be longer. Okay, so again, we have our light source coming in. Then just about everything, I'm going to color this in just slightly. On this lighter ball, it's not going to be very dark. On this darker ball, it's going to be colored in just a little bit, and the shades are always going to be, well, darker. Who'd have thunk? Yeah, I know, obvious. You'd be surprised how many people don't quite get that, though. Now, because I'm using watercolor, I really don't have to color that in a lot, and I may erase it later. Come back and erase it, because you can use a lot of the color that's going on around the outside.